welcome to the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew, and today I don't have a guest, but I do have a question for you. Have you ever got stuck into that mindless trap of procrastination, where you know you need to be doing something, but you just can't seem to start? Let me see if I can help you with that today, and in the process, maybe I can help myself. And let's be honest, how many of us have the motivation day in and day out to go out there and accomplish the things that we need to do? Most of us have ups and downs, days where we feel super motivated and ready to take on the world, and days where we'd just rather pull the blankets over our head and sleep. So what's the trick? Using those high energy days to set up habits that carry you through the tougher ones. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about habit stacking. This is a method to automate your environment so you can be productive without depending on willpower. We'll take a look at the brain science behind habits and how to use this understanding to make creative pursuits seem a little bit more easy. So what is habit stacking? Habit stacking is about piggybacking new habits onto existing ones that you already have. It's like designing a chain reaction in your life. For creative people, that could mean linking a new habit to your current work routine. Want to sketch daily? Place your notebook next to your morning glass of water and sketch as you drink. Need to prep for a creative project? Review your notes while you're waiting for your computer to start. Want to stay inspired? Pair listening to an art or design podcast on your commute or daily walk. The beauty of habit stacking is it removes decision making. The less effort you have to start, the more likely you are to follow through. To understand why habit stacking works, let's break down what's happening inside your brain. Habits are primarily governed by the basal ganglia, a region in your forebrain which is responsible for managing automatic behaviors and routines. This part of your brain is like a highly efficient autopilot system. It thrives on creating shortcuts so you don't have to consciously think about every action you take. Hacking into these shortcuts allows you to build on them and use them to drive the change you want. Think about how you drive a familiar route, tie your shoes, or even brush your teeth without paying much attention. That is your basal ganglia at work. By creating patterns of behavior, it frees up your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's responsible for decision-making, planning, and focus for more complex and important tasks. But how do habits actually form? This is where the habit loop comes in. It has three components: a cue, a routine, and a reward. A cue is something in your environment that triggers a specific behavior. For example, hearing an alarm clock prompts you to get out of bed. A routine is the behavior itself, such as getting up, showering, and getting dressed. A reward is the outcome that reinforces the behavior. In the case of showering or the alarm, feeling awake and getting ready for the day. Over time, as the loop repeats, the cue and the reward become tightly linked in your brain. Your basal ganglia takes over, and the behavior comes automatic. So how does habit stacking leverage this system? It works because it builds on the neural pathways that already exist. When you attach a new habit to a well-established one, you're essentially hitching a ride on a brain circuit that's already strong. This makes it much easier for your brain to adopt a new behavior, as it doesn't have to work as hard to form a completely new pathway from scratch. For instance, if you always brush your teeth before bed, that routine is already encoded in your basal ganglia. Adding a quick mindfulness exercise or gratitude thought immediately afterward takes advantage of the existing pathway. If you lock the door when you're leaving your house, adding a quick mental checklist for your day attaches to a habit your brain already performs without effort. So, going back to our habit and cue, or our habit loop, your existing habit becomes the cue to add to the existing routine, which takes advantage of the existing reward. So you're essentially just expanding that habit loop. Let's talk a little bit about dopamine and how it plays into habit stacking and creative productivity. Dopamine isn't just the brain's feel-good chemical. It's also a critical driver of motivation and learning. It spikes when you achieve a goal, giving that satisfying sense of accomplishment. However, there's a key. Dopamine also increases before you complete a task, as your brain anticipates the reward associated with it. This is actually what makes negative addictions so bad. Drug addictions, the dopamine spike hits before the drug. So what happens with drug addictions is that dopamine comes because you're about to get the drug, and then the drug fails to fulfill on its promise, leading to an increased need for the drug, which creates that negative spiral. So in the exact same way, in the opposite direction, you can use habit stacking to build that dopamine burst and to use that to build your habit. This anticipation from the dopamine can be a very powerful motivator. As I said with the drugs, it can be negative or it can be a positive motivator. So let's say you associate sharpening your pencils with the beginning of a drawing session. The sound of the sharpener becomes a cue signaling your brain that creative work is about to begin. As a result, your brain releases that dopamine, making you feel energized and eager to start. As a small ritual, this transforms an ordinary action into a motivational trigger, smoothing that transition from inaction into productivity. Habit stacking leverages this anticipation reward cycle by embedding micro rewards into your routine. For example, setting out your art supplies the night before isn't just practical, it primes your brain for the task ahead. And when you wake up and see your materials ready to go, you experience a subtle dopamine boost, reinforcing your intention to begin. That's the advantage of going out to your shop and getting your tools ready for tomorrow. It's a 5-minute task that primes your body and it primes your brain for tomorrow's activity and makes it easier to begin. Again, going back to that, leverage the good days to get you through the bad days. Another layer to consider is that dopamine strengthens neural pathways associated with habit formation. When you repeatedly pair a small reward, like enjoying the sight of your organized workspace, with a creative habit, your brain builds a stronger connection between the cue and the routine. Over time, this practice becomes automatic, reducing the need for conscious effort or willpower. In creative pursuits, where starting often feels like the hardest part, these dopamine-driven micro-rewards can make all the difference. Whether it's brewing some tea before writing, lighting a favorite candle before painting, or organizing your tools before woodworking, each action sends a signal to your brain. Something enjoyable is about to happen. This expectation propels you into motion and keeps the habit loop alive. By designing your habits with dopamine in mind, you create an environment where motivation isn't something you have to chase, it becomes a natural byproduct of your system. Let's talk briefly about another way to leverage those dopamine hits to achieve goals, through the power of gamification. One simple but effective way to do this is by using an app like Todoist, which allows you to turn your daily tasks into a sort of a game. When you complete a task in Todoist, you get a little burst of dopamine as you check off the item from your list. For some people, the act of crossing things off a list is incredibly satisfying. By using an app that tracks your progress, you add a layer of structure that can help boost your motivation and keep you focused. Over time, this process creates a habit loop. You complete a task, feel rewarded, and become more likely to continue taking action. Apps like Todoist are designed to reinforce this cycle. They even have features like streaks and point systems that mimic the reward structure of a game. These small but consistent rewards help keep your brain engaged, providing dopamine surges that make it easier to stay productive. If you enjoy checking off tasks and seeing your progress visually, gamifying your to-do list could be an excellent way to harness the power of dopamine in a fun and kind of effective manner, while staying motivated to do your work. Simply create the current task, allow the app to notify you and get that little dopamine hit when you check it off. So how to use habit stacking in your creative life? One of the important things is to start small. Pick a micro habit, like reviewing your project list right after opening your workspace. Small wins add up. You can't expect to change from, I want to go to the shop, to, I'm creating a Bombay chest of drawers. Number 2, anchor new habits to existing ones. Want to practice some daily brainstorming? Do it immediately after you finish your coffee or your breakfast. Use your environment as a cue. For example, keep your sketch pad on your desk so you see it before sitting down. Before you go to bed at night, put it on top of your phone, so you have to pick it up and move to your phone before you start the mindless doom scroll. Number 4, celebrate your wins. Your brain loves a positive reinforcement. Each time you complete an item, acknowledge it, even with a little, mental high five, pat yourself on the back. So, some closing thoughts. If you've been wanting to make consistent progress towards your creative work, habit stacking is a game changer. It's simple, it's brain-friendly, and it's customizable to your life. Starting with one habit, stack it onto something you've already do, and watch your creative momentum build. Do you have a habit stack that's working for you? I would love to hear it at questions@workshoptherapy.com. I'd love to feature your ideas in a future episode. If you want to learn more about habit stacking, check out James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, linked in the show notes. Now for the Patreon plug. I don't often talk about the tiers, but I've decided I'm finally at a place of being able to push some of the benefits of the higher tiers. If you've ever felt like your goals are just out of reach, or you're spinning your wheels trying to find balance between craft and everything else in your life, let me tell you about a couple tiers I've put together. I'm not just the voice behind this podcast. Most of you know that I'm also wrapping up my master's in clinical psychology. My wife is also doing her master's in special education, and together we've run a healthcare business and growing our own creative pursuits. Even though those are kind of somewhat on hold right now while we build the house and finish our degrees, I still want to see you succeed. Because I've been in the trenches of balancing ambition, creativity, and life's chaos, now I'm taking what I've learned and sharing it through some coaching sessions on Patreon. When you join the Workshop Therapy Patreon, you can get access to group coaching with other creative minds, or even one-on-one sessions with me. I'll give you a little bit of tip right now. The group session tier has nobody in it at the moment, so that's like half price individual coaching if you want to sign up for that. In those sessions, whether the group sessions or the private sessions, we'll work together to build habits, set goals, and troubleshoot whatever's holding you back, whether it's your creative business, your mental health, or both. It's your chance to not only invest in your own growth, but also support this podcast and the community I've been trying to build. Let's make those creative dreams a reality. Check it out, and I'd love to see you there. And now, what you've all been really waiting for. A shout out to the fine founding fathers of the Workshop Therapy Podcast. So the things you will build with your hands and your heart, and the ways you'll inspire with your creative art. But today we must pause and give proper acclaim to the patrons who've helped us keep playing this game. There's Matthew from Argiano Serio, so fine, crafting creations that truly define, and Brad of Brad's Customs with style galore, turning the ordinary into so much more. Keith from Blackthorn Concepts, bold and true, designing the kind of work that amazes you. Eric of Overall Makerworks, what a guy, making ideas that soar and they fly. And Brandon of Tectonic Creations, so clever, building pieces that last forever and ever. Then there's the Grant Alexander, what a name, a legend in making, with hands of pure flame. And now, a special shout-out with pride we proclaim, Tony of Woodland Iron, lifting his name. An Atlantic Canadian, strong as a bear, lifting weights and creating with strength and with flair. To these fine patrons we tip our hats for fueling this podcast and keeping us on track. And if you, dear listener, want to join in the fun, head to Patreon. There's a place for everyone. With coaching, advice, and creative care, it's a space to grow and connect and to share. So thank you again from the depths of my soul for helping us craft and achieve every goal.